Oh, so.
And they share like.
Okay, you're live.
We ready?
Is there a new Wi-Fi password?
That came out a month ago.
Tomatoes.
We'll call the Wood Village City Council meeting December 10th, 2024 to order. And reading of our land acknowledgement. Is there a counselor that would like to read it?
I can read it. The Chinookan peoples, known as the Clackamas and Cascades, are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechukli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these peoples included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 in the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous and Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you, Councillor Tan, and please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizen comments, Becky, Greg?
No,
Nothing?
nothing,
Okay,
unless we do have a guest in the audience.
you'll make something up. Thank you. Public safety report. Chief Stewart. Oh,
Actually, don't have a whole lot to report this month. 4 traffic crashes in the month of November. 2 were off 238th and 2 were off Park Avenue or Park Lane, excuse me. So those are ongoing focus areas for enforcement and prevention methods. We have 1 stolen vehicle reported on the 13th of November. It was recovered later in the evening by the Portland Police Bureau. 1 call I did want to talk about on the 21st, reported as shots fired in the Starbucks near Fred Meyer there. Through the investigation, it turns out that somebody had broken the drive-through window with a pipe. And so that simulated the sound of gunshots and stolen the cash box out of there. That subject was arrested a little ways away from the store. So no ongoing public safety concern there. Other than that, I really don't have much else to report.
okay.
That's good.
We have the council has the report. Any questions? It all looked pretty consistent. Anything else that you want to any expand on? Okay.
Nothing else.
All right. With that being, if there's no other questions, then Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy holidays.
Yeah, I mean,
Holidays.
yeah, I just hate to see you go.
He wants you to tell us something.
Yeah.
Be a little more brief next time.
Okay,
I mean, it's right at this.
I got you. I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And have a great holiday, Chief. We're not, minutes.
We got review of bills paid.
Yes. Review of the bills paid. Any questions?
No.
We need on our consent agenda, the minutes. Questions? City events, we have the 5th annual Turkey Drive debrief, but that's going to be held over until January. Look at both of those events. There's a staff report and on the holiday tree lighting. I would like to just take a minute to just have a brief review of that. And when you look at your report on that. So if we can do that and we can do that without, I won't ask for official motion at this point. So we can, there was here's why I wanted to talk about it, because it was a tree lighting event that had events leading up to it. And the staff did just a yeoman's job. If you follow that a bit with Greg, the wind blew the first tent over on Thursday, or was it Wednesday?
Thursday evening at 11:20, it succumbed to the wind. Now you look at the video, it started, ailing in the wind around 10:45, but succumbed at 11:20.
Yeah. And so they did have to replace that and got that up and going. The attendance was low. It was the University of Oregon playing for the Big Ten championship, attributed to that. And I also believe the rain, constant rain during the day, attributed to it. So when you look at that report, and I think you're going to see, you'll see the expenses of the report. That's an area that I think we are going to spend some time on at the next retreat, talking about our events and how we approach them and that. So I wouldn't be too concerned if you hear that there weren't a lot of people there. There weren't, but there were people there that were our partners, Mount Hood Community College president. We had several other folks there. So anyway, limit my comments to that. And Greg, if you want anything.
Well, and I think, when we say, low attendance, 60, 80 guests, which, it's a good number. It wasn't like there was 10 or 20, but not, I think, what we were expecting or what we've seen in past years. But certainly, I think the guest experience was a high quality experience for those who either chose to say brave the rain. It didn't rain for the event, but right up to the event, it was quite nasty. And then, there were other, sporting activities, other regional activities going on at the same time. But yeah, it was a great event, well put together by Caroline. Want to thank also Erica and the crew, because everyone pivoted kind of last minute to put something together. And we have some ideas for next year, as always. But again, that comprehensive conversation, just events in general, I think will be forthcoming. But certainly it is a nice community gathering event. Loved the participation with Mount Hood Community College and their band. People seem to really, really enjoy kind of the live music aspect of it. So yeah, high quality event. Turned out not, I think, what we hoped for, but certainly didn't lack in attendance.
Right. And to thank Play East, because they were there, and kids were decorating cookies. We had one other vendor there helping us with
Pushing out refreshments.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll move on unless there's other questions. The resolution.
We do need a motion for the consent calendar.
Oh, we do, yes.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 28, 2024, election certification. Greg.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just give me a moment to get the screen up. It's a quick presentation. Basically, it's acknowledging the certified results from Multnomah County for the recent election. And so we had 3 positions up for election this past cycle, and that was positions 2, 3, and 5. We did have 1 candidate for each position. So first time in a few election cycles, they've all been filled, and also none were contested. So Multnomah County runs the elections, and they follow all state processes for that. The election was on November 5th, and we got the certified results December 2nd. Those results are as follows. So position 2, Council President, 812 votes. Councilor Tan, oops, sorry, that should have been Tan, 780.
Should I have ran?
774. Those were the official results minus my spelling typo. So next steps, because this was asked at our last council meeting, actually kind of prior to the council meeting, what are the next steps? So we do the swearing in at the first meeting in January, which will be the 14th. We do it at the start of the council meeting. We do a little swearing in, have a little certificate of election we present. So family and friends are always welcome and encouraged to attend and just celebrate everyone is newly elected to the council. This meeting will also be a little different in that every other election cycle or every other year, basically, the council elects their own mayor and council president. And so that will also be done after the councilors are sworn in. The next step will be to, from your own, appoint a new or a mayor and a council president. So that will happen at your next council meeting. So pretty straightforward. We just, approve the resolution accepting the county results. You'll be all sworn in at your next meeting. Questions?
Got a motion?
Yes.
On this?
Because
Three
we're
of
on
us
it.
did.
Oh, I think
Jeff
so.
said yes.
Sure.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was,
Well,
well, somebody make a motion.
Okay. Resolution 28, 2024, regarding the canvass of votes cast for the city of Wood Village in the November 5th, 2024 general election.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Well, now Greg, before we go on there, I want to, related to this, I want to have, just share a little bit of information with you. When I was approved and appointed mayor here almost 2 years ago, there were a couple things that why I pursued that. And one was that I did believe it was time for a different style of leadership and approach to leadership, because I knew we were going to be moving into the fire discussions and conversations with our cities and attempting to, and sometimes maybe consolidate services, excuse me, but certainly looking at public safety. But I also knew, and if some of you were here, that when I was voted and nominated and elected mayor, I said I believed in term limits. And I do. I believe in term limits, not in all cases. And I say, for me, at this particular time, when I decided to be the mayor here, I do believe in term limits. And that's not just because of the term and just the time, because I've enjoyed this. But I'm not going to be a candidate for mayor in January. So I'm sharing that now so that we go into that January, knowing that we'll be selecting a mayor and any other officer, council president, perhaps. I also knew that there was a time when, and I believe this in not only this position, but in other positions, that part of the responsibility of being in leadership is to bring other people along, younger people. In this case, we have a diverse population, and I believe that's necessary for leadership in the future. And I'll say this in all earnest, that we have quality people sitting on this council, and we have certainly a tremendous staff. So I think it is time for me to step down and turn that over to a new mayor here coming January. I do intend to stay on the council and finish out my 2 years in my term there. So I want to share that and know that we are, I am very confident we're going to continue on and making the impact here in East County through the work of our staff and through the work of our elected officials here and the mayor. So just letting you know that so we can go into that next meeting knowing we're gonna have an election there too. So, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our board and commission interviews and appointments.
No, because there is a discussion piece they can have while we're waiting. So we had this at 6:40. We told we have one applicant and we told them, you know, you want to log on a little early in case the agenda runs faster, and it certainly has, but that's okay because there's a bit we can discuss here. Just trying to, it's not what I wanted to hide. I want to see when they pop on, but I'm seeing, there we go. Okay. So we do this evening, we'll be interviewing one candidate for Urban Renewal Board. And how this comes about is the city has 5 standing boards and committees. So it's Parks, Planning, Budget, Urban Renewal, and Recreation through Play East Recreation. And those terms vary by the board, the appointments, some are 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, et cetera. But the council does do all the appointments to our boards. In 2020, the council formally kind of adopted a process. In the past, it had been, if you've been on the board, you get asked if you want to be on there. Maybe it's advertised if there's a vacancy, maybe not. But we really cleaned up the process, formalized it, and to allow new voices, new thoughts, and potential new members to those boards. So new applicants, so everyone does an application. New applications must do an interview with the council. If you've been previously on a board, you could either let your board experience kind of speak for itself, or you can opt to do an interview. So the open positions we had for the upcoming year were 2 on the Planning Commission, 2 on Budget, and 1 on Play East. For Urban Renewal, there isn't a max membership. It's actually just a kind of an open membership. It's a minimum membership, but we did have 1 application. That's Faith Fox, who will be joining us remotely, unable to be here in person. So, in your packet and in front of you, you have the prepared set of questions that the council has accepted for this process. Typically, you all just kind of round robin, take a turn, asking a question. Depending on how many candidates there are, in the past, it's usually just force ranked. Sometimes it's numerically scored. In this case, with 1 application, you can just kind of judge it based on overall merits of the candidate. After the interview process, you all are free to deliberate, discuss, and, you know, if someone so chooses, make a motion to appoint. But we also have typically in the past allowed the candidate just to kind of give a couple, 2-minute opening remark or statement. Then we go into the questions. Now, if appointed, the staff does orientations, and based on the board, we bring in the right staff people, typically 1.5 or 2 hours for that orientation. For the remaining positions we have open, we will continue to advertise and promote those, talk to various community members and groups, and they'll just be open until filled with interviews at the next available council meeting. So sometimes that may mean it's a few meetings out. For example, we actually did just yesterday get an application for Budget Committee. Obviously not in time to bring here this evening, and your first January meeting is already full, so you'll see that at your second January meeting. Now, there is a question about Play East because it's a little unique. It's a IHA between our 2 cities, Wood Village and Fairview, and it just says Wood Village representative. Our other boards and positions are codified in our municipal code and set some of the terms, the parameters. For our Planning Commission, Parks, it's in Urban Renewal. You have, you live in the city, you work in the city, or have a business or business interest in the city. You own a business or something. Play East actually doesn't spell that out. And since we have a couple minutes here waiting for Faith, we thought we could ask that question of you all of, does that seem appropriate for Play East? That is kind of that, you don't just have to just live in Wood Village, but maybe have just an interest in Wood Village. Maybe you're an employee, have a business or business that serves the Wood Village area. So that is a question. I know there's actually been a couple people being talked to about that position. So having a little bit of clarity may help with future applications. So I'm going to pause right here and get your thoughts on that.
And we have 2 positions on Play East board that are open at this point.
Just one.
It's 1.
Just one.
Okay. All right, I believe you.
Yeah, it was Tom Miles was one of our So we get, you get a council representatives and 2 community representatives.
Okay.
Tom Miles was one of our 2 community
Yes, okay.
representatives. He no longer, I don't want to say, no longer wished to serve. I mean, he's been there since the beginning. He wanted some new voices, new thoughts.
Okay, that's right. And Mike is from Fairview. That's why.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, again, Tom Miles, he's the pastor at Woodville Baptist Church, lives in Fairview. So kind of that precedent of kind of live, work.
Yeah. Questions? What thoughts?
Well, I think the easier we can make it for people to volunteer, the better. So, yeah, I would agree with live, work, have an interest. Yeah, just do it.
Pat, I didn't hear all that.
Opening up the availability for people to
Bill,
apply.
spread it wider. Yeah.
Bigger net.
Easier
Bigger
for them to, volunteer
Yes.
if they don't have all these conditions set before.
Yeah, I agree with that, that I always think you find the right people. And that's probably the critical thing on boards, in my opinion, is to get the right people there that have the right interest and the right desire to serve. And if we have to, I like not having it fully defined in any very specific way.
And just by chance at the tree lighting, I was talking with Victoria Miniweather, serves on Earth Renewal Board, has been a scholarship recipient. I knew she was very busy finishing her JD and everything, but I asked if her husband wouldn't have an interest. Coming to find out, he's an assistant coach for Gresham Youth Football. And, they have several kids and everything else. And she said she might tell him. Hopefully, we might see an application from there.
Okay.
Amongst maybe some others.
All right. Well, I think you got your answer.
Yes, I did. Thank you. It's still a bit early. We might be able to get through the community member review of the ward
Let's try it.
discussion. Got to keep an eye.
We had some, very talented and I guess committed people on those awards too.
Always, this is actually, it's, we get a lot of interest in this. Over the years, we've seen a lot of good people and groups and the good being done in the city. So in 2021, the city council formally adopted a community member of the year award program. It's just to recognize, individuals, groups, organizations that go above and beyond in the creation and wellness of our great city. So nominations open late in the year for that same year. And it's open to any individuals, groups, businesses, just can't be a city employee. So pretty much anyone else can be nominated. We opened nominations November 1st with the application deadline end of the month. And this year we had 4 people, 2 people, 2 organizations nominated. So the nomination applications are in your packet. This is just a quick kind of Cliff Note summary. So the first one, not in any particular order, is just the order they were. Maria Guadalupe Hera Flores. She leads the monthly food pantry program at the Wood Village Baptist Church. So the church does a last Thursday of the month kind of food pantry program. She leads that effort. Carol and I got to know her better because she helped run the on-site distribution at our turkey drive a few weeks ago. And she not only just kind of helped run the day of, she recruited, coordinated the volunteers, and made a lot of the phone calls to the Spanish-speaking applicants. So does good work, especially around food insecurity in and around the community. Next one, Vera Hallman. Got to know her last year. She helped coordinate and run the toy drive distribution event at the Baptist Church and is doing that again this year. And that's been a great community event. I think certainly from a guest experience, those who are in need feel very welcomed. And it's a great experience for them. And kind of other activities. She is a children's ministry director. Don't know a lot of what goes into that and how it benefits the community, but that was just noted in the application. I'm sure it goes beyond just the borders of their property there. The Reynolds CTP program, that's the Community Transitions Program, which is just housed next door to our park. So during the school season, that program does weekly park volunteer support, and it varies between once or twice a week, except during, holidays and breaks and things like that. But typically they'll do some litter removal, they'll help clean up the picnic areas, maybe some light weeding or kind of very light park maintenance work, but certainly with litter removal and some cleanup efforts. Awful's been great with our events, both kind of, they've washed pumpkins, they've assembled goodie bags, helped just assemble other stuff. Some events they actually provide some volunteer support at, so they do directly kind of for Wood Village, but they also do other volunteer-related efforts, Habitat for Humanity at their Restore, the Meals on Wheels program, a couple of food pantries. So doing a lot of great work. Part of their program is trying to help, I don't want to say educate, but provide experience to those who are 18, I think it's 18 to 23, who need just a little bit more help coaching, life skills. And so through these volunteer projects and efforts, they start learning those. So great program, great instructor, and, students are always cycling a little bit because some age out and some come new, but great group of people. Last but certainly not least, and obviously a theme of people who were nominated, is actually the Wood Village Baptist Church itself. I believe this is the third time it's been nominated. Obviously, it's a longstanding partner for our event, specifically the Night Out. That's well over 20 years. There's been past times where we held cleanup days there, Easter events, we used to hold our volunteer dinners there, and other just meeting space before we had this space. That was kind of the meeting space of choice. They do a lot of neighborhood efforts, cleaning up yards of area homes, or whether it's yard work, maybe there's some excess debris or waste items, minor repairs, maintenance. They provide homework help. They got their food pantry program, the toy drive. They just recently did a community garden, and they have their open campus with recreation amenities such as the futsal court, kind of a half-court ball thing in an open field. So I don't think we need to explain it. Most of us know what they do and what they have done for the city since our partnership. So those are the nominees this year, and next steps will basically you all can discuss and select the winner. Staff will then coordinate with the person or organization. We'll invite them to a future council meeting, probably the second one in January. We'll do the photo ops. They'll be on the perpetual plaque, and then we do a gift card package to Wood Village restaurants at about $250. So, and there's new restaurants this year to add to that, so that's great. So this is where I'll pause. They really don't have hard, fast selection criteria. It's just as varied as the nominees themselves. So happy to answer questions as you deliberate.
All right, well, let's open it up here. Greg, I failed to check in with Mark. Did he let you know that and I didn't?
The intent was to be remote.
And that's what I thought too.
And I'm wondering if there wasn't some sort of.
Yeah, if he's not here, we don't need to bother.
Yeah.
Okay. Community Member of the Year discussion. We got 4 very good applicants here, so I'll open it up and.
Leaning toward the church. They have so many varied programs. They just seem to encompass everything. They give away food, they give away money, they give away clothes. You name it, they give it away. And pastor is very on top of everything that happens in that church.
I certainly concur with that, Councillor Smith. And Greg, they've been nominated 3 times.
I think this is their third, yeah.
When I was sorting this out, and I know all of us look at this, and Vera and Maria Guadalupe, they work in the church. And
Yeah.
I think it might make sense to capture that with not only the 2 applicants that we have, but plus the church, and certainly put it under the umbrella. And then we can really recognize those 2 people also the Reynolds, transition program of, I think, a worthy consideration. And hopefully as they work with us, continue to work with us, maybe even expand, and we can help them grow that program. Could be a viable candidate in the future. That's my thoughts. Counselor Tan?
I was just thinking about, if we did go with an organization like, the church or the transition program, how that would, as far as, the gift cards be dispersed amongst.
I'm trying to
Organization.
remember exactly what we did, because our very first one was the Natural Leaders, Letters Naturalis. And, you know, we had a core, like the core group, I think it was 12 or 14 of them. I believe in that case, we kind of took the monetary total we'd normally spend and kind of split it amongst those groups. I think we just did a general gift card that year. I can't remember the details, but we kind of allowed the organization to tell us what would be meaningful. So whether it's the Baptist church, maybe they go ahead and honor specifically, you know, Vera and Maria, maybe a couple others, and, you know, we can kind of figure it out that way. Or if it's the Reynolds program, we can figure that out.
I like nominating individuals. I think, it takes for one person, the amount of time they set aside to do these things, is a lot. So I'm kind of leaning toward an individual because of that.
Counselor?
Yeah, obviously, I've worked very closely with the Woodville Baptist Church. I'm very intrigued with the Reynolds CTP program. I think that is an amazing partnership, especially the way they partner with the youth, and then we can kind of collaborate and provide that work experience. When I was looking at this, it was kind of between them and the church, but kind of going off what you were saying, Mayor, you know, if we could do the church and then, you know, in that maybe highlight those individuals there, you know, I think could kind of hit, you know, 3 birds with 1 stone per se.
Give them a little bit more recognition.
Yeah, you know, and kind of, obviously there's a bunch of other people in the organization at the church that are well deserving, but you know, these are the ones that got nominated as well. But I think leaning towards the church could do more of an umbrella and encompass those other folks as well.
Could we find more money to make 2 other gift
Short
cards?
answer is, I mean, yes, with an asterisk. It's not really finding more money.
Well, you
It's-
know what,
because
everybody says we got to find it. You know, we got to find
Because you have your council discretionary funds, and, you know, you can use a portion of those to offset. I'm assuming, or maybe presuming, that this seems like the Baptist church will be the selected one. And so what I can do is work and see how, you know, what's that core group, you know, I think obviously Maria and
Fair.
thank you. And I'm sure there's, you know, a handful of others. We can work with Tom, find that out and see how many of those are and do something that's meaningful and see what that cost is.
Yeah, good
And then
idea.
using council discretionary funds to add on to that if that's so desired.
I like that.
Is that a thumbs up?
Yes, I
Thumbs up.
like that.
And we'll take a vote on this.
This is the vote.
This is it.
No,
Yeah,
I
Jess.
excuse me, I'm an official vote. Do we need to be on record on this, don't we?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, I just thumbs up for discretionary conversations.
It's up on the plan and then we just
Yes.
need a motion, you know.
Yeah, because I
so
think Tom could really help this be recognizing 2 individuals, and then he can, you know,
Yeah.
manage that
Yeah.
within the church congregation. Okay, I need a motion.
I move to award the 2024 Community Member of the Year Award to the Wood Village Baptist Church.
I'll second that. Been moved in second?
Aye.
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 Hi.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
And I do see that Faith Fox did arrive, so I don't think I need to do my PowerPoint. I think I'll just reiterate the plan. Faith, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Yes.
Perfect. So
I'll be
what
able to turn on my, oh, go ahead.
we were running actually quite a bit ahead, so we took care of some other business stuff. So we're ready to basically jump into the interview. And so what will happen is the council, after we give you a few minutes to just introduce yourself, talk about yourself, why you're interested, kind of an opening statement remark. The council will then ask those prepared interview questions, and you're free to answer as you've prepared. So anything before we get started, any technical questions or issues?
No, I don't have any technical questions right now.
Perfect.
Good evening, Faith. This is Mayor Minor.
Good evening.
Good evening, and I did meet Faith at the tree lighting ceremony, so it's nice. I don't see you, but I know you're there. Can council just go through and introduce yourself? Councilor Smith.
Patricia Smith.
Counselor Daratan.
Council President Jairo Rios Campos.
Thank you. All right, Faith, go ahead and, introduce yourself to us. Give us just a brief background of your interest here. And we do have 5 questions, and we'll just work down through those questions. And they're big questions, but we know that you can narrow it down, and we can move through these questions. But go ahead and let us know why you're interested in being on the working with the city here on the Urban Renewal Board.
Yes, my name's Faith Fox. I have lived in Wood Village in the Tree Hill development for about 7 years. My husband and my son and I live here. My son is 3, and we've just been so pleased to live in Wood Village and to have a safe place to raise him. We've just been really impressed by different initiatives that the city has taken upon themselves to host. And so I'm excited to be able to contribute to the things that have so positively impacted my family. I have a long history of being interested in like, the best way to put it, I guess, is like what makes healthy cities and how cities can be healthy for people and for families. And I'm guess I'm interested in urban renewal because I know that for urban renewal to be done well makes a really positive difference, and for it to be done poorly makes a really negative difference. You know, there's a lot of history of urban renewal, but there's a history of urban renewal that has negatively impacted many communities, especially communities with high concentrations of people of color. And so I want to be a part of making really good decisions that's going to be really healthy impact on the city.
Thank you. And you just answered question number 1.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Well, perfect.
So Councilor Smith, you want to start us?
I'll go with question number 2 then. Faith, what is your definition of leadership, and how would you show your leadership style on the board?
Faith, oh, okay, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
prefer to lead through example, lead through service. And I really enjoy opportunities where I get to, teach by doing and to be hands-on and alongside people. Though I recognize that there is a time for just direct leadership to be really clear about expectations and really clear about the kinds of things that are important. We shouldn't be vague or anything when it's a matter of importance. And in fact, there's been situations I found myself in where, I am an attorney by trade, and when I'm advising a client, you don't want any wiggle room. So you want your advice to be clear, and you want it to be concise. And it's important to me to communicate clearly and effectively. And I think that's part of what makes a really good leader.
Thank you.
Councilor Tan? Yeah.
What do you consider important factors in the group decision-making process?
I am always really interested in group decision making when it can allow for all voices to be heard, for it to be a situation where all voices can be all voices feel comfortable speaking up, but also where there is a roadmap to reach consensus, not even that everybody is 100% on board, but that everybody has a win, and so that everybody can kind of be a stakeholder in the outcome.
Question 4 there. What do you believe, Faith, are the most important issues facing the community at this time?
I think a lot of people live in Wood Village because of its relative affordability and its relative safety to the wider metro area. And I'm personally, I talk to people that are maybe afraid of the more dense urban environment. And they say, well, I don't want to be in Portland for this reason or that reason. I'm personally not afraid. I work in Portland. I love the bigger city, but I also find that having our kind of little suburb out here, we can offer a lot of different resources and and when I say resources, I really mean community. So preserving that sense of community such that everyone feels safe and everybody feels welcome, including people that are different, including people that are have lived here their whole lives, including people that are new. And I guess that's really, however people self-identify, they would feel comfortable and welcome. I think that's the root that addresses a lot of the wider problems. People being unhoused, people having trouble making ends meet, people having access to the things you need to have access to is all very important. But I think a lot of those symptoms can be met by having a strong community focus.
Thank you.
What else would you like to tell us about how and why you would serve the community?
I am interested in the board, the Urban Renewal Board, because it's been told like less than 5 meetings a year. That's a commitment that I can meet. And then I'm sure there's communications in between. That's also a commitment that I can meet. And so for an entry into local government, it seems like the right thing for me right now, combined with my interest in healthy communities.
Thank you.
Faith, we've gone through those now. I'm just going to open this up for any questions, follow-up questions from the council, or any other thoughts or questions for Faith. You have her packet in your folder, so we do have that too, Faith. But go ahead. If somebody else, I'm happy to start this. All right, what you just shared with us is certainly the kinds of things that we share as a group here. And it's important for us to know that we serve the citizens. And we're here to make the residents and help the residents of Wood Village thrive, to use a word that is overused, but also to support that. And all the issues that you've listed here are certainly the topics of our conversations often. So with that, is there a motion?
I do want to point out a typo in the staff report. The end date would be 2028, not 2025.
2028.
It's a 4-year term.
4-year term, yeah. So you can't, yeah, if we point you, you can't be quitting next year. All right, is there a motion?
I move to appoint Faith Fox to the Urban Renewal Board with a term expiring 12/31/2028.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Faith, thank you very much for your interest, pursuing this and becoming a part of our city government here.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Now,
you.
I do have, Faith, while you're there, and I broached this with you a little bit. We do have a position on the planning commission open, correct, Greg?
2 positions,
Two
correct?
positions. I noticed in your application, you stated that the Urban Renewal Board is your presence, but if that spot is unavailable, I'm interested in the planning commission. Do you want to have a little conversation about that?
Potentially,
Okay, well, let me let Greg talk to you about how often that meets and what would be your
Great.
commitment to that.
Yeah, so I'll give a Cliff Notes version here since this was sprung on you, and I know you have other things this evening, but essentially Planning Commission meets as needed. And so as needed can vary. I would say kind of in the 2019, 2020, when we were doing a lot of code updates and amendments, it was meeting 6 to 8 times a year. Lately, it's been maybe 2-ish, and it's been more development related. So mostly design review, and it's looking at the design of new construction that's being proposed. We do have a few code things on the horizon for the next, 12 to 18 months, and maybe a development-ish improvement. So I would think for 2025, I'd be surprised if there's any more than like 4 or 5 meetings. And we work with the full planning commission on setting what date we can get a quorum, like this meeting, hybrid approach. So if you can't be in person, that's always acceptable. And we would do a full orientation to that. That's like, I will be in touch with you here the next week to set up an orientation to urban renewal, but probably after the first of the year, after the holidays, let you get through that. And we can either then do, if you want to be on planning, we could do, separate urban renewal orientation, do a separate planning, because with planning commission, there are times where you're a quasi judicial board, there's actually decision making, some ethic things to go over. So it is a bigger orientation about those facets. It's still, what we look for in people is as people of community interest that want good things to continue for Wood Village. So you don't think you need the technical expertise. We will teach you that. And that's why we have, staff to help point out those things. But I think that's the Cliff Notes version of planning commission.
Faith, you think about it, okay?
I'm leaning towards a yes, just for the council's information, but I appreciate the opportunity to think about it.
Okay, all right. Well, that's getting you real close to being
Could we
appointed.
do like a pre-vote just in case you?
Yeah,
say
yeah.
yes?
That's,
I
you're-
expect I would be able, I can commit to that. Yeah. It sounds
All right.
like it would overlap quite a bit.
Okay, because you were nudging right up to it. We better take action. All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve Faith Fox to the Planning Commission
And that's a 4-year term as well.
for the length of a 4-year, a full term,
2028.
2028.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
You're in.
Aye. Sign up for one, you
Thank
get
twice
2.
over.
Yeah. Faith, thanks again. I'm looking forward again to having you join us.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good evening and a happy holidays.
Happy
Thank
holidays.
you. You all.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, we got
Hey, knock
That's
two.
nice.
Like
That was
that.
really smooth. Yeah, that one up the sleeve.
All right. We ready? PGE franchise renewal ordinance 7-2024. We You got there. So quick bit of background. So we had a 10-year franchise with PGE, or they had it with us. I think it'd be more accurate. We've extended it through the end of the year with PGE as we've gone through these negotiations and processes. So in June of 24, PGE sent over what it would like to see for revisions, and Wade took out Big Red and scratched that all up and then presented that to you on your meetings of the July 23rd and October 22nd with updates. Of all the revisions they wanted, there were 3 points of, I'm going to say concern or just of note. One of them was regarding some changes around when the city requests relocation of facilities and there's not enough right of way, the city has to then basically acquire that right of way. We didn't like that. Unfortunately, that's essentially, we don't really have a choice in that. There's PUC and other requirements that if we request it, we're kind of on the hook to provide the space if space isn't available. The other one was vegetation management, and PGE was seeking to, in the initial language they provided, kind of broaden their vegetation clearing. We have since scoped that down and refined it. And the last one was really an outcome of our transmission line on 238 and Sandy Boulevard that went through an undergrounded area, and we've got new language around that as well. So what this does is set the terms and conditions for operating within our city limits. If adopted, it takes effect January 10th, so there'll need to be a 10-day extension of the existing franchise. What this does not do is impact the actual rates that they have, because that's set at the PUC and that's a separate process. We do have our franchise fees as part of this, but nothing directly tied to rate. So we can't say thou shalt only charge X. Like we work with Waste Management, for example, actually get to see the rates and set those. That's not the case with PGE. So I've had several discussions with PGE, and I like to say they've all been professional, cordial, working to find a solution, nothing contentious, nothing. Well, there's been back and forth. It's been a positive experience. So this highlights what I already said, and I'm going to get into the exact language. So vegetation management, this whole section is brand new. But really what it did is this last section here where basically they can't remove, prune, or touch vegetation beyond the scope of their adopted vegetation standards. That was included in your packet, not part of the adopted franchise agreement, but that way you can see what those standards and practices are, which they do fall under the American National Standard for Tree Care. And if they so need to go outside of that, whether it's outside their easement or outside a right-of-way, they do have to work directly with the property owner for any kind of trimming or removal needs. And that seemed to be a nice balance between, we don't like when power gets out because limbs and things fell on them. So there is a need to maintain it. We also don't want to give carte blanche, clear cut everything. So I think this struck a nice balance, and PGE accepted this. This is, I think, my favorite one. This is just a subsection of Section 9, subsection C. Grantee may not install permanent overhead facilities within the public right-of-way that have been converted to underground unless we, the grantee, the city, or they complies with terms and conditions set by the city and receives our written city approval. So they wouldn't be able to do what they did without our express written approval and terms and conditions. I'm guessing they were okay with this because the likelihood of putting something in where we've already undergrounding is low, but not, impossible. So I'm glad to have this language. I take it as a big win.
Congratulations. We'll get the Wood Village language in there.
Yeah, after, it was already said and done, but we didn't have that language. So those are the big new changes, revisions. I think we got to what council was seeking out of it. This did go through their internal executive review process. They've approved all the language. So it really is up to us now. This does require a public hearing because it's an ordinance. So pause here for questions. You can open the public hearing. If there are no comments, you can close that and go right into further deliberation and a motion.
Okay. Open the hearing first or questions?
You can do questions and then open the
Let's
hearing.
do questions.
I have a question. Can you go back to the first slide, that one right there? So where it says the grantee or contractor shall not prune unless they talk to the property owner. So what's that notification? Is there like a time frame of the notification?
Well, since they can't touch anything until they've notified and worked with the property owner. I mean, if the property owner doesn't respond to any notifications, they can't do the work.
They can't just do, okay.
Correct. It's not like, oh, we left a door hanger 3 days ago and you didn't respond. So
We're taking action.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. If basically they have to work with the property owner to do anything outside the right of way or their easements.
Thank you.
Other questions?
No.
Okay. Greg, thanks for the work on that, and we'll open our public hearing on the granting of franchise renewals to Portland General Electric.
I think you can close it now.
Hearing no questions from the public, we'll close that hearing and take action.
I move to adopt ordinance 7-2024, adopting a 10-year franchise agreement with Portland General Electric.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thanks for the work on that one.
If only all of them could be this easy.
That's right. Well, you know, you had to work at it still a little bit.
I did.
Some of that language.
But it was good work.
was
Like I
good.
said, I mean, they were good partners to try, get to yes, craft something.
Yeah.
Also, Jeff, he had to
Okay.
work just to talk with us because his firm represents PG.
Okay. All right.
We're so.
All right. Seth,
Yeah, that's fine.
nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
You know, that's good.
Mayor, councilors.
Short-term public safety funding option. This is very relevant and timely.
It's loaded.
Voted, but did you hit share?
He didn't.
I am still looking for it. Oh, there we go. Had to look for my theme,
You gotta do share first.
not this share. Zoom share.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right. Good evening. Mayor and council. As you guys are probably aware, we are currently working with Gresham for an update on our fire services contract, which expires in June of 2025. City Manager Jerks has been meeting with them and talking, keeping you guys in the loop about the weekly updates. Hopefully we'll get something tangible within the next month or so, but we know that the initial Gresham ask was to increase our payment by 120%. We've been working on taking a look at some alternative proposals, and one of those is the idea that they did pass a local option levy in May of 2024, where they asked their citizens to pay more for enhanced fire service. We feel like that's probably the lowest we would get away with paying, since they expended some political capital, put in some work, increased their service level, that they had that engagement with their citizens. If we were to have been brought in on that or charged the same rate that they ended up charging their citizens, it would amount to at least a 30% increase in our fire costs. So none of these are small numbers. And as Councilor Smith pointed out earlier in the meeting, the real question is how we're going to pay for it. So that's what this conversation is. It's the first of many conversations and kind of what some options might look like in order to pay for increased fire service, at least in the short term, as we explore some of the longer term options, which we had discussed last year at their strategic retreat, in which AP Triton is working on conducting the fire study and some updated financials to bring to you after we get into 2025. So this is just some context for what the scale of cost increase might look like. So how would we go about bridging that gap? So we put together a couple of options just to kind of, we wanted to present these, get some discussion and feedback from you. So this would help inform us on what options we need to put further work in, develop some timelines, plans on what you guys would be, your preference or priority options would be for us to look at. So the first option is we could cut other general fund services to pay more for fire. you know, our general fund is about $2.3 million of operations.
Seth, just as a further kind of picture on this, this is our getting into the nuts and bolts first conversation about how we're going to pay for this. We're not making any decision here.
No.
Plus, we don't know how much money we need yet.
We don't.
So that's gonna,
Well, we currently,
yeah, so that's going to influence which one these directions we have to go. But this is an important one for us to start getting our head wrapped around.
Yeah.
Where the money is going to have to come from.
yeah, because we want to be able to start working on, we're hoping that we get a number from Gresham come January, February timeframe. We want to get a little bit of a lead on what these options might look like, timing wise, from a legal standpoint, how much, so that when we don't start that work, once we find out from Gresham how much they want, we are actually trying to be proactive on having the conversation with you, getting your priorities so that you're also aware that this is part of this conversation. So the first option is that we could look at cutting other general fund services to pay for fire. We do have an operating margin in the general fund, as you guys know from the 5-year forecast. It's not enough to support a couple $100,000 more for fire without eroding our ability to replace the capital of the general. So one option is to cut other general fund services. One of the issues with that is this isn't a use less paper or distribute less shirts at your community events type of cut. Any of the general fund services that aren't part of our public safety contracts, so 911, fire, and police are all contracts that we have with the sheriff's office, city of Portland, and Gresham. We would love to cut those, but we're in the position we are because those costs are probably going up rather than down, and we don't really have a lot of control over what those are. And our building fund is restricted. We can't use that to spend on anything else in the general fund. So if you take those two pieces out, that leaves about $900,000 in the general fund that you could potentially cut, and that covers staff salaries, parks, events, and general fund share of shared services. So that is an option. And if you want us to put together some proposals for discussion, we can look at sizing those and kind of what we can do with that. On the revenue side, there were 3 options that are fairly common. There's more than that, but they're a little less common. One is we could increase our franchise fees. We could implement a public safety utility fee, or we could propose our own local option levy. And so I'm going to run through what those 3 options might look like. So franchise fees are essentially a gross receipts tax on any of the utilities that use the right of way to conduct business. The big ones are PGE, who we just heard about, Northwest Natural, and then our own utilities. Gresham started increasing their utility fees in 2012. And this is kind of a comparison of what our regional partners are currently charging. So we're the only city that doesn't charge a franchise fee on our own utilities. And that's been part of, I think we did a council update maybe 2.5 years ago, discussing that and making you guys aware that that was a potential option for bridging some of the general fund issues that we were forecasting might come up. And look at it, we're here at that time. And then also Wood Village, Troutdale, and Fairview did not follow Gresham's lead in increasing the franchise fees on PGE and Northwest Natural Gas. Mostly because there wasn't a need, and also those taxes are passed along to the ratepayers. PGE and Northwest Natural Gas, as I'm sure you're aware, have a public utility commission, so it's not a guaranteed profit, but they get allotments and rate adjustments for increased costs pretty regularly. So if this was an increased cost, it would ultimately be paid by the people who are using it. So it's essentially a pass through, which is part of the reason why we haven't done this in the past. And League of Oregon Cities' most recent survey indicated between 1/3 and 1/2 of cities charge their own city-owned utilities. So it wouldn't be outside the norm. And it's an option that city council can take to do without a lot of hoops to jump through. Revenue impacts of this. If you just, city utilities, bumping those up to 5% would generate about an extra $125,000 a year in revenue. If you bump the private utilities up from their current percent, it would be closer to 330,000. So that's kind of, it's one of the only revenue sources that we have in the general fund that we haven't tapped that's large enough to bridge the gap that the type of scale of gap we're looking at for fire. Public safety utility fee.
Will you go back to that one?
Sure.
Please, because I'm looking at your, the paper one.
Yep.
Implementing across the board 10% fee would raise 575.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the 10% fee over all areas there, utility fees as well as our own
Yes.
fees?
I'd be taking our fee from 0 to 10% and the existing PG and Northwest Natural, which are 5 and 5.9 up to 10% as well.
Okay.
That's kind of, and that would be in line with what we'd essentially be adopting Gresham's rates on those,
Okay.
which is, I think, the maximum that we would, at
And,
least on the private side, that's the maximum we would be allowed to do.
and that would have to be voted on. Am I correct? That fee?
Yes.
For our utilities and for PG and Northwest Natural.
Because it's franchise fees considered a privilege tax.
Privilege tax.
We have that provision of the charter that says.
Okay. So, and.
And we would have to do some research on whether, and we probably need to talk to Jeff about whether this would be a new or there would be some issues that we would need to go explore with that.
And not to get too down in the weeds, but approximately how long would that take to move in that direction if we decided in 2 months that's going to be the reasonable direction?
I think it would depend on some deeper conversations with Jeff and what exactly goes to the voters. And I mean, anything that goes to the voters is going to take, you would want a significant, education outreach campaign. Frankly, the next two options would also require that. So if you're thinking about what's going to be taken for a public vote, kind of keep that in mind with the mix of options, because that effort is an effort.
Yeah, and that's really my point here. Probably not till a November date. So we're gonna have to pay some money here before then to keep our fire service. So as I think about this, the general fund's gonna have to get hit here. And it can only last, I don't want to guess, Seth, you know, but it is only a temporary.
Well, and I think, not to get in the weeds of what we're trying to do with Gresham and those discussions, but asking for kind of a 2-year phase in of whatever increase it looks like to kind of account for this is going to have to go to the voters. And to say Gresham sprung this on us, we don't have, the dollar that we need. So that's hard to go out to the people to say we need to raise X. Yeah. And so hopefully they can be understanding of that and allow for, some kind of phased in approach. So the general funds of all of our communities don't take a 1-year big hit while we try to fund the gap.
Okay. We can keep going here. That was just the point here. We got to get our head around that a little bit, timing and temporary funding and.
Another option is just instead of doing this as a franchise fee, you could do it as a public safety utility fee. This is something that a number of communities have done. The only one in the region is Gresham, and they implemented theirs in 2015. A lot of different methodologies. In order for it to not be a privilege tax, you'd have to do a lot of work to make sure that the service delivery there'd have to be some correlation between the service provided and the fee that's charged, which most cities don't try and establish that. They just implement it as a privilege tax because that's complicated. And I don't I'm not aware of anyone in Oregon who's tried to implement a public safety utility fee as a fee and not just put it under their privilege tax authority. And we do have a charter provision from 2006 for a vote on new taxes. So if this was privilege tax, it would need to go to a vote. Finally, local option levies. These are, rather than these being charged on the utility bills, these are charged on the property tax bills. We do these, you see these come up for schools, see them come up for special districts, county. Gresham passed the most recent one within our region was Gresham passed their public safety levy in May of 2024. This would require a vote in a campaign. As Greg mentioned, May is the next general election, but trying to start a campaign and get it up in 3 months is, I won't say impossible, but probably not advisable. Given the amount of dialogue that has to happen with community members, the amount of outreach you want to do, the community engagement you'd hope to have on something like this, which as the mayor pointed out, means the next general election would be in November. If we were to put something on the ballot, then we wouldn't get any money until the following November. So November 2026 is when we would see the first check, and we have to get from July 25 to November 26. And we do have, that's one of the things we're incorporating into the 5-year forecast for this upcoming retreat is kind of what that bridge might look like depending on the options and the amounts. Just generally, the general fund has a healthy fund balance. We have not been unaware that something like this might be coming up. So bridging this for a year or two is not going to significantly impact us financially, but anything that's assuming the Gresham again isn't asking for the 120% increase. So it's all kind of dependent on where that all shakes out, but we have some ability to maneuver in how we can approach this conversation strategically rather than have to be entirely reactive to what Gresham's ask is. Kind of the question that you'd have is you have a couple different ways of doing this. If they're going to all require a vote of the people, then it kind of comes back to how does the council want to frame the discussion in light of the long-term objectives that we've talked about with fire, about getting fire with stable funding on a dedicated revenue source, looking at exploring a district option, that type of thing. It seems like a local option levy would be the easiest option in that regard, in terms of if you do a local option levy as a short-term funding mechanism and you want to do a district 3 years down the road, then it would naturally, you vote for the district, the local option levy goes away. But you could have some sort of tie into the property tax, since that would be what the new district would use in order to fund their operations. So that's just kind of some options, some potential pathways. Again, this is kind of wanting to get this in front of you so you can start to noodle on it, cook on it now, think about what you guys want to do once the Gresham negotiations solidify, and kind of give some direction to us so we can start to do some legwork now. Try and get a quick turnaround for information that you guys might request coming out of that. So,
Well, appreciate this conversation starting now.
yeah. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Becky was really pushing to put it off to January, and I'm like, no, it needs
Oh,
to
no,
be
no,
done.
it's dumping on us. So council, thoughts as you're noodling on this discussion at this point?
How are we looking on working with Fairview and Troutdale on the fire district? How is it looking?
Well, I'm going to say a few things, and then Greg is closer to it because the city, it's in the city manager's hands now.
Mm.
But as far as the mayors go, we all agree, and of course now Troutdale's going to have a new mayor, but we all agree that we do have to be tightly coupled here as we move forward with the conversation. And I would say we're coupled right now. I don't know how tight it is, but we are coupled and we're moving together because we know we have to. That would be the big picture that. And I had lunch with the mayor of Fairview just the other day, just to make sure, we're going the
Yeah.
direction and what we're going to try to put on the table. And then Greg has been meeting with as I said, the city managers and Gresham. So Greg, you can take it from there.
Yeah, so, with Fairview, kind of a city in transition, with this city management and other leadership positions over there. I think it's kind of been deferring to Wood Village. Seth and I have presented to their council. We've talked to their various interim managers. I'm fairly confident I'll be having conversations with their new one after the first of the year, bringing him up to speed. I do feel for Troutdale in all sincerity. They're dealing with two public safety contracts right now. They have their law enforcement one and the fire one. And they've been spending, since we've kind of taken lead on the fire, they're spending their time on their police one because it is just the Troutdale contract. So that's been a little bit of lag time in responding to some of our questions or proposals. So we're kind of at the moment down to kind of two options. They both flush out about the same dollar wise. There's some differences a little bit to them, but the methodology is very different. And to us, the methodology matters because that's basically what we're presenting and defending to Gresham. And by defending, I mean in the positive, deliberative kind of way, not like we're up in arms defending it yet. So, I think that's where we're at right now. Fairview's deferred to us. They like kind of what we've proposed as the pitch, which is basically looking at Gresham passed and their community's paying a local option levy. What does that look if we did an equivalent? How each city pays for it's up to each city and what works for them, as you've already seen some of the options. Troutdale has some different thoughts and we need that time to just flush it all out. But I like to think we can get something end of the week to Gresham for their consideration, have a discussion towards the end of the month with Gresham on what they think of that proposal and how the dollars actually flush out. So again, hopefully after the first of the year, we have more clarity on where this may at least land in a larger sense. And then, kind of hopefully February, March, we've got something actually tangible for your adoption consideration.
One of the things that we know we're going to have to do at some point is get a vote and collect some money, and it's going to take a vote. So I know that in our AP Triton report, it's coming soon.
Yeah, hopefully, I think by your retreat, there should be a substantially completed, I want to say draft, like, done, but maybe some sections, wordsmithing, et cetera. That's the other thing I meant to add was in terms of three cities, I think we're all in agreement. This is a short-term funding need looking towards that regional solution as the solution.
And I will also say this, there is a general consensus that I hear from the mayors is that a fire district is what we would prefer and moving in that direction. So we're going to have a vote at some of these soon. Greg and I have also talked about soon getting a PR firm to begin working with the three cities so that we can begin building a strategy that will be perhaps not exactly the same with all three cities, but at least consistent in the talking points that we use so that's clearly circulated across our three cities. The numbers will be different, what they have to raise. But I think that conversation, we know we need to move forward on that. So that's coming to parallel to what we need to talk about.
My question would be, and obviously we can't make the decision until we find out what Gresham is wanting, but also until we get that full report from Triton. But if ultimately, the three cities are in agreement that a district is the direction we want to move in, how can we in the interim, in the educational piece, when we start going out, start also providing that message as well?
I think that's something that will be probably highlighted in the final report, kind of if I use the term regional solution, call it district. And I think given when you talk district, there are several ways to district the service area. Is it looking at creating a brand new one, annexing into an existing? I mean, there are options there. So I think the report will provide clarity on that, and then we can start working that as, the three cities agree. And that'll help define kind of the hows and the whys of the outreach, and also then what it may cost and what does that look like. That's where, again, bringing on a PR firm early helps kind of craft general messages. And then as we know what solution we want to move towards, you can really refine it, hone it, help people, explain the positives, what they're basically buying. Also, as a city, once we kind of know those numbers, what that may look like, I think there are considerations for our own, current property tax base, if it's already paying a bit for fire. What are those considerations? That's where you get polling. So, an example, I'm not saying this is the approach, but if we were to drop our tax rate by a bit to help, pay in lieu of what we'd always been paying, and then, bringing that back based on inflation and population, how does that resonate with the community versus if we're not spending X on fire, what could we spend X on? And maybe that's X on. What could we spend Y on? And does that resonate more to people? Are we buying something different with the sheriff's office and like a community resource deputy, or different park improvement, other general fund stuffs? And that's where, again, having the PR firm, the polling, and a deeper understanding of the community's wants, needs, and trade-offs will come into play as we actually put together that final package. That answer your question?
It does, and kind of like, thinking out loud. So, if we, after looking at all the information, we're like, okay, in the short term, we want to go out for a local levy or whatever. And then in the long term, we want to do that district. Would it be kind of like two different things we'd be going out for the voters, or could we kind of package it in one to say, for the first 2 years, it'll be this, then later on do that? Is that possible, or is not at all?
It would be difficult to do that because you can't levy a tax for a district until it's created.
Yeah.
And then the voters have to set the.
I mean, there are some advantages of the doing a levy to get us through the short term, because levies are 5 years only. So it's built in as temporary. Ideally, we're able to move on that regional solution, call it 3 years or so. And part of the communication is, great, that levy goes away, and here is the new rate, and it's kind of the permanent rate for that regional solution. So, something that came up that I think was difficult for Gresham was, they got the public safety fee, and the question was asked, hey, we're paying this levy, what happens to the fee? And it was like, we don't talk about the fee. In our case, we don't have that fee. We don't have the extras on franchise revenues going towards public safety. So we still kind of could keep those in our bucket for reserve for maybe future potential down the road needs, but it certainly keeps the focus. This is for fire life safety. It's kind of exclusive. We're short-term funding it at this amount with the idea we've got this longer term, and by longer, hopefully 3 to 5 years, regional solution that solves a problem and provides that service level that meets the community's needs.
Right. And if you did manage to get the district running, I require you to collect the last.
Because I guess my fear, and just hearing people that live in Gresham or have talked to those folks is like, okay, they have this 5 year. And then, if they're talking about if a district comes about, the perception of, oh, well, we paid this and now we're going to pay this, so and I understand looking at how the contract is looking, we're going to need both. And so I think as you guys are talking about a PR, I mean, that's going to be crucial to kind of that message of putting that out there to say like, this is just kind of helping us gear towards this final solution.
Yeah.
And be like, that's it. Cause what I don't want is, oh, 5 years now, oh, another 5 years and then another five. And so, you know, folks are just getting strung along. And like you mentioned in our neighboring city there, well, what about this other feeling? It's like, well, you know, don't.
It kind of becomes the permanent temporary
Yes.
fix, which is what we
Yes.
don't want. And is, you read the history, especially on fire service, there's always been, oh, we'll do something next time. We'll study it next time. We'll pick it back up. And I think, I think from a Three Cities perspective, from certainly the management perspective, it ends here. We need to solve this riddle kind of once and for all.
And then just to reiterate a couple of points that the discussion is that I hear in the discussion is a levy, cities, school districts that are most successful with levies is that when one is done, that goes away and you introduce another levy, much more successful in passing that next one. Because if this is 5 years, if you try to layer two levies and one doesn't go away, it's just what you're talking about. You lose a lot of trust. And you get, double talk and, the bureaucracy is doing it to us again. So I think, again, there is a way, if you had a 2-year levy, and when that goes away, and again, I'm not looking at any numbers and I don't have to figure that out, just ideas. But if we don't have to pay 500,000 and going up, then that money, if it could be used to offset in some fashion, I don't know whether it's, some fashion, utility fee, maybe there's an enhancement that benefits citizens and a real enhancement. And there's a way to balance that, I think is what I'd like to see some thoughts given to. How could we reduce a burden in some fashion, or give something that is, even if I don't know what it is, but to balance that, I'd like to see a future discussion that would incorporate that concept. And with that, again, I go back to the campaign because I think we need to get started real soon with some conversations. And I think a consultant could help us, but we need to start having, my belief is, some public meetings with our citizens and talking about this. Not without a plan. We want a specific step towards it, but I do believe that's necessary this spring.
Yeah, I believe once we've got the final AP Triton report, we've all been able to digest it. We know what the Gresham cost is going to be and what that renewal looks like. Then is the time to start the longer term solution. You don't wait.
And I know we're at least the studies done with Three Cities and Mayor, I know you talked about being, tight knit. Are the other two cities on board on, the PR firm and, moving on that? Whereas, I mean, I feel we've been talking about this for quite some time. And so I feel that at least for our city, we see the urgency in it. Not that they don't, but like you mentioned, Troutdale has another thing looming over their head that is, more recent, more now. And obviously, Fairview has other things that they're kind of dealing with. So, if we did move on community meetings and a PR firm, would we be doing it solo? Or would there be an attempt to say, hey, maybe we'll start this, you guys join in the near, 2 weeks later type of thing?
I think there's certainly options to, piggyback, steal or borrow materials. One thing, I mean, three cities, while we're very similar, they're also very, very different. And each city will need to craft what's important to its community, much like we were going to ask them a question. Would you rather spend $500,000 on these things or try to save a little bit? I mean, that's going to be unique to each household, community. So they're going to have to ask their people that. And that's not something I want to pay a PR firm to do for them. Now, they're certainly more than welcome to take our materials, take our playbook and run with it, hire the same firm. I don't care. I do believe probably Fairview, and this is speculation, will probably just, like to steal our playbook and run it through their committees and their processes. Love it. That's great. And, Troutdale, they're a bit different. They do have more resource than the other cities, just higher tax base and returns and things. So they may try to do something a little different. But again, I like to believe we'd still be at least in great communication and where things are headed for each city. So hypothetically, great, we're voting on this regional solution. Let's just assume it's 3 cities voting on it. Gresham's doing Gresham things. I could see it where it's the same question about, do you want to vote yes on X? I could also see it that X looks a little bit different. While maybe a fire district, maybe some cities are lowering their permanent rate a little bit for a period of time. And maybe other cities aren't because they're going to, they've got a committee that says we're going to then monitor these funds and spend them these ways over this period of time. Again, that part will look different, or I'm presuming will look different, but the base question will be the same.
Make no mistake, we are further ahead than the other 2 cities, and further ahead in not only this discussion, but with the count question.
I guess I was just more, as the 3 cities are using the same firm to do the study, at least in my mind, it would make sense to potentially use the same PR firm that could craft individually to each city. But, since as much as I'm hoping it's a joint effort between the 3 cities, I understand each city's approach is going to be different, but I think that could bridge some of those gaps to, we thought, we were all agreed on this type of deal. And so, again, I understand each city needs to do their own thing, but there's strength in numbers.
We have a 3 cities meeting that we were trying to get in before holidays, and that's not going to, it's not going to happen, but
Troutdale got a lot of new people on its councils. That's going to take they're going to get educated on a lot, especially public safety for Troutdale. Fairview, I think.
They all say the same.
Yeah. So that's an advantage. Granted, new city manager bring on board. We have the advantage. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now.
Greg, don't you think, and Seth, we have to move forward.
Yeah.
And what we do, they will either come along or take pieces of it, but they're definitely looking for direction. So, and we get a PR firm, and if they want to, split some cost, and the PR firm's interested in working with 2 entities, then, so be it. But
I think at least the first phase of the PR, which is broad survey questions, crafting of what options might look like.
But we're going to try to keep staying together,
I do know.
But it is, there's more changes in Troutdale coming too.
And again, their focus, not that they don't care about fire, but the police one is very serious to them. So at this specific time, it will be at a Fairview, I think in 18 or so months. And potentially for us, again, we're very different in our contractual relationship and partnership with the sheriff's office than the other 2 cities. In at least brief conversations with the sheriff, there is no real interest in changing that, but there's also the chair to consider and the county's budget office. And, those are things that there's only so much control. The county is an odd little duck sometimes.
Well, how's that sounding? Is that, to give you a little bit of direction?
Well, it sounds like the preferred option would be to look at and keep whatever option we're doing, keep the focus on the long-term solution, which to me says we'd look at the local option local option first, and then the other two would kind of take a back seat, and we would spend more time developing that. You're not interested in putting together a cut package for the general fund to help bridge the gap, independent of the budget process, or at this point.
Yeah, I mean, everybody hear that? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not it.
Yeah.
Okay,
The $500, the 500 that we're spending now on fire, that's gonna go up. Just add that to the discussion of how that might play into the temporary to reduce costs, okay?
yeah, we'll do that.
Or ask Santa Claus for a sack of 500,000 and unmarked small non-sequential bills.
Okay.
Each year.
Each year. All right, thanks, Seth, and council for, working, thinking this through, and we're thinking out loud, but that's the way it works. The director reports, Public Works is in your folders in the packet. Erica, anything you want to go over? You can come over here. What would you like?
I don't have a presentation for you, so I can
Okay.
sit wherever.
You just sit there and that comes up. I got it.
We try to keep director reports to a minimum this
Right.
month because we've got the little executive session. Cognizant of.
Right. Well, we got it here and we can read it too. So, but if you have some highlights.
I think the only highlights, we wanted to bring back more of an undesirable topic that our water loss has gone back up. But it was nice to see that it's gone. We know that's not a leak because it went down. So now we're just working on brainstorming to figure out what's actually going on in our system. So that's kind of where we're at on that. And then I just wanted to highlight, we've had a few staff changes and updates. We actually, we talked about Robbie finishing his 6-month period, but we also had Jeremy who just finished his 6-month period as well. And then also passed his water distribution level 2 certificate. So now we have 2 people in our city with water 2 certificates. And then Garrett also finished 5 years with the city. So some good things and stuff.
Redundancy,
Yeah.
backup. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, and we have a new utility staff, Austin Hill, who just started. So, Yeah.
Started a while ago, but.
yeah, last month.
Okay. Seth,
I don't have anything to call out on the finance director's
Okay.
report other than what's in your packet.
get the back. Okay, thank you. Greg?
Nothing really specific to note. I'll do a bigger one at the second January meeting, but certainly happy to answer any question about progress on the annual performance plan. Clearly a lot of work on fire, taking a lot of brain capacity, trying to work out, a reasonable solution for the short term or a renewal with Gresham and then, the options moving forward.
All right, well, we have an executive session.
That we do. And I'm going to stop the YouTube.